let me start by first apologising for taking so long to make this video. It's been over 6 months, I think, but to tell you the truth, I've had the worst 6 months of my whole life. So I'm not going to bore you with the details of that, but it's sorted now and we're back on track, and this was meant to be the first video. Now, my second apology is for the quality of this video, which is far below the standards I'd like to put out, but unfortunately I had nothing but trouble with the GoPro Hero 8 all through this trip, day after day, freezing, crashing, corrupting SD cards, destroying all my footage. All I got in the end was the last day's video minus any sound, so it's been a bit of a disaster video wise, although the trip was really good. Yeah, needless to say, I'll never use GoPro again if they're this unreliable. I mean, you arrange to do a trip of a lifetime and spend all your time planning it and then executing it, only to be let down by the equipment. So when I've looked online, it's not just me. There's a lot of vloggers out there complaining. It might be the most known brand, but it is definitely the most unreliable, and that camera is going to go into the bin. As far as I'm concerned, GoPro are absolute dog shit, and I'll be moving to another brand after this. Yeah, now luckily I did take some video with my iPhone and lots of pictures, so I've made a sort of a slideshow and compiled as much video as I can with what I've got, but it's just a simple video so you can see what this route is like, because it was truly stunning. So apologies for that once again, but it's the best I can do with the limited video and material that I got from the trip. Mind you, something did occur to me. On the bright side, does this mean I've got to do the trip again? Maybe I should do it on the e-bike or motorbike. I don't know if I can face cycling it again, because it was pretty tough going that north bit. It's a pretty tough road. So is that a good or a bad thing? I don't know. Over the last 3 years I've been doing the NC 500 in sections: Westeros, Assynt and this last one, Sutherland. I stopped for a quick picture on the way to my first night's lodgings, where I would be starting the next day and where I'd leave my van for the week. I'd booked a budget room at Alt Nagar Lodge near the Falls of Shin. This lodge was built back in 1910 by Andrew Carnegie, the famous industrialist and philanthropist. It features the second ever Otis lift installed in Scotland by the son of the man himself, Mr. Otis. Back in the day, this lodge would have been magnificent, as Carnegie was a billionaire by today's standards. I was intrigued to see it, as one Google reviewer had said it reminded them of the hotel from The Shining, you know, the one with Jack Nicholson, and it was a bit spooky. So, for the first day of this trip, I was to cycle along Loch Shin to Scourie. Luckily for me, the weather was amazing, and I cycled along in brilliant sunshine all the way there. I rode this very same way last year on the final leg of my trip from Scourie to Lairg. I had meant to camp last year, but arrived in torrential rain and bottled out into a B&B. This time around my luck was in. The sun was out and the campsite was superb. I literally couldn't decide where to pitch my tent because the views everywhere were so good. Scourie campsite is first class with spotless toilets and showers and a well-stocked on-site shop which also serves hot food. Best of all were the views out to sea, which were simply stunning. Well, day 2 was wall-to-wall sunshine again. The scenery was stunning, but different to the Highlands. I arrived at the famous and tiny Cape Wrath ferry, where you can cross the Kyle of Durness and then walk or cycle the 11 miles on the other side to the Cape Wrath Lighthouse on the most northwesterly point on the British mainland. Once again I was camping and the campsite was fantastic. I quickly got showered and set off exploring. When I got to the edge of the campsite, I couldn't believe the stunning scenery and the beaches that lay before me. Especially the Sango Sands viewpoint. I was dreading day 3 as the mileage was further than I wanted to ride on a fully loaded cycle, and the forecast was pretty bad. Yet again the GoPro malfunctioned, and in the afternoon the weather turned to rain and bad fog, so all in all I didn't get any video from the day. Thankfully my stay in a pod at the Hallidale Touring Park was amazing, with fantastic facilities and a superb restaurant. I was completely exhausted and glad to crash out in my cosy pod after stuffing myself stupid with food. Well, the next day started out bad with an atrocious forecast, but there was a silver lining to this black cloud. I use an app called Windy and it had shown strong winds forming, but as a tailwind. Now this section isn't the true NC 500, but a suggested cycling alternative to avoid the busy A9. It was traffic free and beautiful and reminded me of Yorkshire. By afternoon the weather had improved and I was loving the ride. I stayed at the youth hostel in Hemsdale, where Mary had upgraded me to a family suite as they were quiet and she was a cyclist too. Her welcome and the hostel were first class. This was the last day and believe it or not, the bloody GoPro actually worked. I got loads of video, but guess what? All without sound. What an absolute joke. After a quick 10 miles on the A9, I turned off at Brora and onto minor roads. Not long after leaving the A9, I arrived at Loch Brora. Lump there, isn't it? I'll have to look that up tonight, see what the hell that is. Looks very distinctive. Then it was time for a stop and my second breakfast. Eventually I arrived at the A839 where I turned off towards Legg. At long last I reached Legg, where I was looking forward to a well-deserved coffee stop. If you're ever passing through Legg, you really must call into the Pier Cafe restaurant. It's really good. It was great to get off the cycle and enjoy a lovely coffee and cake. As usual, I ended up having a long conversation with somebody. It was a nice guy from New Zealand who was cycling south on the Land's End to John O'Groats route. After chatting for an hour, I set off back to Altnagar Lodge where my van was parked. This last section of the NC 500 had been truly breathtaking. I just wish the GoPro hadn't malfunctioned and lost all my video. As I walked back up the gravel drive, I pondered why that review on Google said this place was spooky. I never saw a manager who looked like Jack Nicholson or any ghosts.